Can you walk me through what you want this podcast to be about?
Well, I think our main goal is to try and explain to people that they don't have to stay in a mode that doesn't suit them. Meaning, growth is something that we should all be working towards regularly. Meaning,
Sure.
there are things that we can do that we have to go through life, right? Or through existence, if you will, where it's like, oh, we got to have a job, we got to do this stuff. But we get too hung up in that stuff where we get away from what it is that we really want to do. And I think that's part of this process, identifying that need to figure out that you want to change. And usually that it's a difficult process for people because routines are so easy to stay in because they're comfortable and it's easy to conform and it's repetitive and you know what the answer is going to be every single time. So that change, usually the need for it or the desire to change usually comes from some degree of discomfort of your present situation. And there's a saying, when the pain of change is outweighed by the pain of staying the same, that's when people start to really make the change. So the goal really is to identify for a person what it is that they truly want, that desire, that goal, and then start putting the elements together to do that and to get out of your own way, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I feel like this podcast would be great for those that, are just trying to live their daily lives and just improve on, small efforts, small goals, and, being able to achieve them. I hope to hear from many different people on this podcast, and hopefully they can give us insights as well as us hopefully provide insights to people listening. But yeah, I mean, before anything, how about an introduction? Where are you from? Where are you working out of? What's your current situation?
So right now, I'm Ash Tamaya. I'm a little over 40 years old. I am on the tail end of my 22 and change year career in the Army. I'm retiring in July. I'm right now on terminal leave. I started an internship program with the Army. That's a whole other story in itself, with another company that I'll be working for. This journey of mine, I got on this path of self-development, like really deliberate self-development about a little over 3 years ago. And what turned me in this direction, or I hit the proverbial wall. Bad stuff happened. I don't like to dwell too much on it. I don't like digging up the past. I'm over it. It's done. But the point is, when I got there, that process that brought me there, I was in a dire situation, personally. So I figured the only way out, as opposed to looking for things outside of myself, was actually to turn inward and to figure out that I needed to go within. And that's the first step. When you stop trying to grasp on things around you, trying to pull yourself out of it by looking for conditions outside of yourself. And that's, I think, daily conditioning. That's why we came up with this name. It's getting in that mode where you condition yourself through deliberate action, deliberate thought, to make yourself happy. And because that's essentially your goal. Your purpose is to be the source of your own happiness. You should be the source of your own happiness, not anyone else. People should add to it. They can add to it if they want to, but you should not be dependent on another person in order to be happy. Because what happens there, you become conditioned by outside conditions. So when you become conditional on things outside of you, when that condition outside of you changes, it's going to affect you. You essentially render your control to that condition. So I know it sounds pretty simple, but it's a complex term. It's difficult for a lot of people to take because you have to essentially reprogram yourself. Everyone has these paradigms. It's a big buzzword nowadays, especially in self-development, self-improvement. Paradigms. Bob Proctor has been talking about paradigms in his lectures for over 40 years now, 30, 40 years. And he talks about, he mentions that all the paradigm it's what you hold to be true in your programming, how you feel the world should work, or how you feel you should react to the world, rather. And part of that is understanding what paradigms you have that limit you, your programming that limits you, and those that empower you. Because that's there's only one thing, the same thing, that will limit you or enable you, and that's whatever you adopt into your psyche as your programming. So into your subconscious as your programming.
All right. Well said. I am Alberto Huerta. You guys can call me Berto. I am a 29-year-old millennial who is at a crossroads. And given the current situation that we're in, the pandemic, right? So I am that person that is transitioning out of the military, hopefully trying to get a job, a big boy job, sharing my daily struggles with you guys, and hopefully Ashir can elaborate on more of how he sees life and overcoming certain situations. Yeah, I mean, for everyone that's coming in on this podcast, this podcast is going to be not just I guess what you're talking about? These are values, these are points, these are thoughts. What are these? How would you categorize these points that you're making? Where are they coming from? You know,
So I would categorize them as tools for development. You know, they're aspects of how you need to adopt, or what you need to adopt into your mindset. So that's really what it's all about. It all starts with mindset. So you have to develop a mindset that's going to allow you to progress. So what I mean by that is, if you have a mindset that says, I'm limited because of this, oh, because I'm of this, whatever label you want to put on yourself, or whatever label you categorize yourself as, then by virtue of you believing that to be true, you limit yourself in getting anything outside of that or past that, to the point where it becomes negative self-talk. Like if you were to say, well, you know, if you told yourself somehow you've adopted a paradigm that says, you know, I'm a renter. I never want to buy a house. I want to rent. So you will manifest those particular outcomes will come in your life. You're not going to have these opportunities, or if the opportunity comes, you're not even going to see it because you've already adopted a particular paradigm to say, all right, this is who I am. You've identified yourself as that. The way it works is whatever you identify yourself as, whatever law or rule you put on yourself, you're going to essentially manifest that. The goal is to try to be open to what you really want and look at those things. Like I said, that which limits you will inhibit you, and you choose those things. One thing you mentioned, like, and it's funny, when I heard you say it, like my daily struggles, right? You have to, one of the mindset elements you got to change, and this is not an easy thing, folks. It's a process, but you can do it in increments. That's the thing. If you tell someone who's struggling with some type of problem, whether it be overweight or physical fitness or just general happiness, you can make incremental changes every single day to make your life feel better. Like, why am I getting angry if someone cuts me off? So at least first be aware of it. Like, it doesn't benefit me to get angry. So how am I going to curtail that? Maybe leave a little bit earlier. Are you really rushing? Is it really that important for you to get to wherever you got to go So you can make these incremental things. And on the fitness side, when we teach fitness classes, it's like, if you're unhealthy and out of shape right now, you can make an improvement today to be better than yesterday. You can eat a little bit better. You can do a little bit of exercise. So it's about this stuff that, you can do, that you can affect change right now, because that's the only time you will ever have. It's right now. Yesterday's gone. Tomorrow isn't here yet. Right now. That's where everything happens, in the present moment. Every time you're sitting and waiting for something, all you're doing is you're dissipating your energy. You're not putting your energy towards where you should be putting it in the present moment. That's kind of how you should kind of look at things. And as opposed to looking at things as struggles or giving them negative connotations, not to say that people don't struggle through things. Everything that we experience has an opportunity hidden in there somewhere. Some are more apparent than others. So every opportunity, every challenge, or every circumstance that comes up in our existence provides us with an opportunity to do something, to grow from it. We just have to have the wherewithal to see it. And that's really the challenge, where a lot of people just get, oh, the world is kicking my ass, or life's kicking my ass, or something like that. Where it's really, it's your interpretation of how you can handle that particular situation.
All right. So let's give an example here. For those that are flipping burgers, for those that are young or old and are in a certain situation, like let's say they're flipping burgers at a local McDonald's and they find themselves and they're stuck, right? They want to go somewhere. They want to move up. They want to be better, but they can't. How do you approach someone, or how would you, I guess, make those first steps? I guess acknowledging that, you're stuck, and then how do you overcome, I guess, go to school or take that risk? Those little baby steps that maybe for some it's a little more difficult than others.
The first thing that has to happen, it doesn't matter what the situation is. It could be a guy flipping burger. It could be a guy making $120,000 a year, but they're just unhappy with their life. They have to first get to that point where they have to identify that they want to change, that their discontentedness or being discontent is their breeding ground for development. Because someone was unhappy with the mode of transportation and created a car and started creating a car. Someone was unhappy with the mode of transportation and then a plane was great and then commercialized it. So discontent is a great place to start from. But you have to take some action. And the first thing you have to realize is when you're unhappy or dissatisfied with something, that's good. It's good because it's showing you something in your head is clicking and saying, I want to do something else. Now, where most people get stuck, they're like, well, they automatically talk themselves out of it. So the first thing you have to do is really just sit down and figure out what it is that you want to do. And that's a process. But you have to, if you're doing something that you don't like and you can't think of something that you want to do that you like, then you need to try some new things. And then hopefully along that path, you could find something that you like. Now, at the same time, you don't have to quit the job. That's a thing, a big misconception. You don't have to quit the job. You can use that job and it's providing you with sustenance, but you have all these other hours in the day that you aren't working. And what are you doing? Well, how are you using that time? One thing I would tell people, if you worked out an hour a day or did anything for an hour a day, whether it be study, learn, read, work out, think about that. 168 hours in a week, right? 7 hours a week. That's 4% of your time. 4% of your time. So the first question you'd ask that person is, what is it you want to do? I don't know. Okay, so what are you doing outside of work when you're not working? Well, how much are you putting into developing yourself, finding that thing, learn something that you enjoy doing. It doesn't necessarily have to be college. It can be. Usually people go to college because they feel like they have to, because there's some societal paradigm that you have to follow, but they end up working in a profession that had nothing to do with their degree. We were talking about this the other day on the phone, Berto, right? Where I was like, yeah, I went to college and I ended up taking English Lit, a bunch of English Lit classes. They were electives. And I was like, I really like this stuff. So I started taking those classes. It's about trying new things and experiencing and trying to find there. So, but the first step of being dissatisfied or being discontent that's kind of where you have to go. But here's the thing. If you need help or you want to find, there's so many resources out there, but you have to try and you have to find the stuff. You have to go out there. Listen, as a person who coaches and a person who helps, I'm not going to go and just walk up to anyone in the street. Hey, you can do better with your life. No, that's not how people don't like to do that. People don't want to be told that they're doing. You have to go and say, I need help. How can I get better? And you don't even need to talk to a single person. There's tons of resources like our podcast. There's tons of other people out there. There's books out there. There's all this stuff. There's so many. You Google self-development, self-improvement. You're going to find tons of stuff. You go on Instagram, and I post every day. I post some stuff, and there's all kinds of hokey stuff people put on personal development and self-development and self-improvement. There's stuff's out there. You just have to find what resonates with you and makes you happy. But the thing is, you don't have to crush everything. You don't have to you do need to start making some changes. And when you start finding the thing that you resonate with, you're going to get passionate about it. And then you're going to see the growth. And once you see a little bit of progress, and you know this, Berto, too, when you start doing something and you start seeing noticeable results, you start wanting to do it more, right? You see the benefits of it. And that's really where you gotta go, that you kind of have to go.
Using myself as an example, I wasn't flipping burgers, but I was working at a sandwich shop in Fresno, California. And I remember this place. It was downtown, I don't know if anyone here knows where Fresno is, but it is one of the worst cities to live in California. But I was there for college, and I remember I was not flipping burgers. I was at a deli basically making sandwiches, and I just remember just like, how the heck am I going to get out of this? I'm still in school. I got kicked out of school. I wasn't sure where I was headed, but I just had to find the small little achievements, right? I was able to become that supervisor. I was able to learn every single job and setting a goal for myself. And, the way I made it out, I think I joined the military right after. But I took that initiative. I had to really recognize that I was stuck, and I had to make some sort of drastic change in my life. And that's what I ended up doing. Ash, I don't know if you have something similar, a bit more.
Wow. So my memory is pretty, listen, I can go far back, and I joined the Army like 22 years ago. It was 98. It was before 9/11. I was a regular, traditional guardsman at the time. 9/11 happened, and I've been active duty ever since. And a lot of things changed in my life, and I've had ups and downs and all this other stuff. Honestly, for me, when I realized the change, and it wasn't like, listen, I have a house, great family, a wife, my son, I have parents. I have a great job, senior guy. I made Master Sergeant 2000. I was 33 when I made EA Master Sergeant, and I senior chief instructor at my unit. I've been in for a while. I could easily, if I wanted to stay in and whatever, I could probably definitely just I could make E9 at a time if I wanted to, but I was just unhappy because I just didn't know what my purpose was in life. And that's where I had to really, I call it, work on my ground game. And I had to figure out who I was. And you think you're your profession, you think you're your ethnicity, you think you're your gender. You're not any of those things. You choose those things. Because here's the thing. It's like, what's your name? My name is, I am Ash Thamaya. Well, who's the I that's saying I am? You're something bigger than whatever. I can change my name. I'm in the Army today. I'm a Master Sergeant. Tomorrow I won't be in the Army. I'm not a Master Sergeant anymore, right? So if you stay in the Army, Berto, what I mean is, you're a sergeant, I'm a master, right? I leave the Army tomorrow. You don't have to stand a parade rest for me. You don't have to, you know what I mean? So labels and titles, positions, ranks, those aren't who we truly are. So when you start, that was where my journey started. It was a lot deeper. It was more than just simply, being successful and making money or having all those things. It was more than that. I wasn't comfortable with who I was because I didn't know who I was. I didn't understand what I was. And I put my energy and attention into focusing on a future that was somebody else's design. It wasn't what I really wanted. It's what I thought was the best thing for me to do based on what I knew and what I was good at, or what I thought I was good at. And when I really dug in to figuring out who I was, that's when I, made that decision to really, focus and grow and develop. And I'm not to sound cliche, but it's the truth. Mind, body, spirit. You have to work on those three things. They're not independent. You can't focus on just one and not feel the full value if you focus on all three. Now, some are better. It's easier to do some things than others for some people, but that's the challenge where you kind of really have to, and that's what I figured out for myself. I had to get into that mode where I was developing in those three particular categories and at different times. The body for me was probably the easiest thing to start with, because a physical discipline you can apply every day. It doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be as crazy as mine. We're running 30 miles a week or 40 miles every day, but even just getting up and doing some type of physical discipline, that's really what it is. That's because what it does is it forces you to get out of your comfort zone. We talked about that before, Berto. So when you force yourself to get out of that comfort zone, that's the application of discipline. The discipline itself has such a negative connotation with people, like, oh, I'm doing things that I don't want to do. No, it's about getting your mindset to do the thing that's the work now, so that you can get that goal that you want later. Like if you wanted to go to, people do it every day. They get up and go to work because they don't want to be late, right? That's applying a degree of discipline, but that's extrinsic. That's outside of you. When you get the intrinsic stuff, you're doing it for yourself. That's really where you start to really see the growth and really see the power of what you're capable of.
I feel like we should do an episode on just failures, because my follow-up question was going to be, are you okay with failing, basically? Those that are listening.
I love that word. I love that word, failure. Yeah. So I define failure very simply. Failure is when you stop. Failure is when, imagine you say, Berto, I'm going to drive up to Albany tomorrow, right? You live in the city. You're going to drive to Albany. You get in the car, you go, and there's just really bad traffic. At that point, you're like, you know what? I'm going home. I'm not going to Albany anymore. That's failure. You stop. What people typically call, failure way to success. Failure is part of the process when you're looking at it, where you try something, it doesn't work. You make a mistake. Thomas Edison said, I didn't fail 1,000 some odd times before I made the light bulb. It was 1,000 some odd steps. I'm paraphrasing the quote, before I got to the light bulb. Making a mistake is not the same as failing. I like to categorize failing as when you stop. And it's okay in that capacity too, because if you don't want to do anything anymore and you realize this isn't my bag, I'm going to stop doing it. You can call it failure. You could just call it redirecting yourself, but that's really the essential part there. Like you can work in a career, right? And I could stay in for another 10 years if I wanted to in the Army, until they threw me out, forced me out. And I could. And I know I could meet the standard. I know I could do the stuff. I want to stop. Now could you call it failure? Sure. You could say, oh, well, you got out. You could have made Sergeant Major. You could have all this other stuff. But for me, it's like, I found my passion somewhere else. I found where I wanted to redirect my energy. So failure, or making that mistake, or having that contrast, is a better way to put it. Having that, what that means essentially, Berto, is you have a projected outcome in your mind. That outcome didn't manifest the way you wanted it to. So you have two options. You can either try doing it the same way that you were doing it, or make an adjustment, or actually have a third option, or just stop or fail, do something else, right? And there's what it is really, when I think about this failure, the failure success mentality is, you have to be willing to fail. You have to be willing to put yourself out there. That's the thing. The greatest risk in the world is not taking any risks. You have to get out there and try something. And a lot of it's self-talk. A lot of it's, societal stuff. Like if I were to, I was talking to my uncle, not to go too much on the sidebar, but I was talking to my uncle some time ago, and he was talking about my son. He's like, well, what do you want to do when you go to college? My son at the time was like 11. He's 13 now. He's like, oh, I don't know if I'll go to college. And he's like, what do you mean you don't know if you'll go to college? I'm like, well, why does he need to go? Well, what are you going to, you have to go to, why do you have to go to college? So there's these societal things about, you have to do these things, you have to go to college. I talked to one of my friend's sons who was going to college, and it was like last Christmas, I think, the holidays. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to whatever college he was going to. I'm like, what degree are you going in? He's like, whatever degree he said. I was like, why are you going into that degree? Like, well, I don't know. I just figured like that's the thing to do. Like, no, they don't have any idea. Like, what profession do you want to work in? Why are you going into this degree? Because someone said I could get a job easier doing this, or my mom did it, or my dad did it, or you know what I'm saying? People are just making decisions and are not really thinking about why they're doing it. And then they talk themselves out of it, or they talk to someone else and they talk them out of it. Oh, you can't do that. What do you mean you want to start your own business? That's crazy. You get a good job, get a 401k, get a pension, do that for 40 years, then retire, move to South Carolina or Florida, and wait till you die. That's not living. That's existing. You know?
I mean, just to reel us back in a little bit, because I definitely want to give the listeners, I guess, would you say you're experienced at failing? Like, have you experienced true failure in your life? I mean, I know you've given me your definitions. Like me personally, like I have plenty, but maybe we'll speak of it more later down the line. But like, for example, like I was on track. I was in ROTC. I was about to become a lieutenant. I was just one semester away from commissioning, right? And I just remember this life event happened, and then I got kicked out, right? That's true. That's what I describe as a milestone gone wrong, right? A true failure. Now, getting back on the horse, that's a different story, right? So have you had that happen to you? Like that sort of, you almost got to a point and then you failed. It was one of the worst experiences of your life, and then you were able to overcome it, right? And I guess this is really important, because I think that the listeners want to hear true experiences and why it's important to continue. It's okay to fail. Like, it's okay to do something else, change your direction, I think you said.
Yeah. So that's the thing, right? You mentioned that. So you fail at you had a goal and you were so close to getting to that goal, and then something happened and you didn't achieve, you failed. Okay. You stopped, or something stopped you, whatever the course, it doesn't matter. You stopped progressing towards it. You lost it. But here's the thing, is you say getting back on the horse. It's not about getting back on the horse. It's about getting on a different goddamn horse, because maybe that wasn't the thing you were supposed to do. The key to take away there is to not lose your momentum. Listen, you get punched in the face, you get knocked down, but you get back up and you're like, all right, I'm going to do something a little different now. That thing happened that way because it didn't happen because it didn't happen. You can't go back and forth, regrets and all this other stuff. It's done. It's over. So what are you going to do now? What are you going to do now? That didn't work. Listen, we can all back and forth. You ever hear people do the what ifs? Well, what if I went to this college? Or what if I dated this girl? Or what if I bought a house here? Or what if I didn't deploy? What if I didn't join the army? You're here. So what are you going to do now? It's not what if, what then, it's what now. So that happened to you, Berto. And listen, you get knocked down at cert, you're in the dumps. We've all been there. Like I've had countless times. Like I'll tell you one time, this was the moment for me. When it's happened, when I started, I was like, I am done working for someone else. When the promotion list came out for E9, and I saw where it was, and I was just like, I wasn't happy with it. And then I looked at the system and some of the other things that were happening. I'm not going to get into details, but it didn't roll out the way I hoped it would, the way I wanted it to. And what did I looked at it, and I got very upset about it. Like, the system's messed up and all this other stuff. Then I looked at it as like, this is a sign. This is an arrow pointing, go. This is an exit sign that's lighting up.
Sure.
You can either sit and play the game that someone else makes the rules for, or you can go and make your own goddamn game. I decided I'm going to make my own goddamn game. And that's where I made it.
Sorry, I just want to clarify for the listeners, just an E8 to E9 is a very, very big step. I mean, being an E8 in the military means like you put in pretty much your whole life, 20 years, and you can retire. But an E9, that's just basically I would say that's the pinnacle of the enlisted side of the Army, other than obviously Sergeant Major of the Army. But E9 is just like, you made it to the very top.
To get at that, I mean, that's a podcast discussion for a whole different audience. But it's not about how high you achieve; it's what you do in the sphere of influence that you have, right? Now, with that level, as getting to Sergeant Major, depending on your Sergeant Major, Command Sergeant Major, your sphere of influence can increase, but it's a matter of what you do with that sphere of influence. I was lucky. No, I don't like to say lucky. I manifested a situation for myself. I don't like that word luck. Sorry. But I manifested a situation where opportunities presented themselves for me as a Master Sergeant. I got to teach over 1,000 people in the Army, the National Guard, active duty, U.S. Military Academy. I teach FDNY instructors. I mean, I would not have those opportunities if I got that promotion. I would not have the opportunity to figure out my true passion, which is instructing, teaching, public speaking. I love it, and get on this path for self-development if I didn't hit that wall. So yes, to answer your question, failure way to success. Failure is very important. If I got that thing, like if I got the sergeant, if I was number one and I got promoted, I wouldn't be here with you right now. I don't know who the hell I'd be right now. If those things didn't happen, I'm a much better person than I ever was. And I know that. And that's really the challenge you want to give yourself. That's the question. If you want to say, hey, am I growing? Am I a better person than I was a year ago, 6 months ago, a week ago? And I'm not saying better person like if you donate money or are you as a person, do you feel you've progressed? Have you grown as a human being? Are you a better person? Are you, less of the anger and the finger pointing and the blaming and all this other stuff?
No. I was gonna I'm just listening to you, but I think we're gonna have to wrap up.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I know we kind of got late start, but
No.
I think this was a great first episode. We hit a few things here, so it's good. Thank you for listening to the Daily Conditioning Podcast. Please remember to like and subscribe. Also, please leave us comments on your thoughts of this episode and topics you would like to hear about in the future. Thanks, and have a great one.